Okay. Okay. So what we're going to try and do today is talk about newspaper research. And it's a frustrating topic for two reasons, one of which it can be an extremely rich source of information. Okay. I'll give you some examples in a minute. The other one of which is finding it is very hard because there are very few standardized websites you can go to. And typically we're looking for something that's specialized. We were just talking about Jewish newspapers in New York. Okay. Uh, where do you go looking for that? It's that kind of a question. Or in my case, I'm at one point looking for uh, information about early miners in Lead, South Dakota. Okay, where they had lead. I don't know how they actually pronounced it, but it was lead mines. Okay, and where one of my grandson's ancestors happened to come. They were uh, miners in uh, Wales, and they made their way over to be miners in Pennsylvania coal mines. And then they made their way over, continued on to South Dakota. Well, where do you go for that? Okay. So it's that kind of a problem you're trying to wrestle with here, on top of the fact that there are all sorts of questions about how do you actually access that information. So hopefully this will be helpful. Uh, Peggy, Peggy, would you go click on the link that says presentation PowerPoint on the controlling the lights? There's one that says PowerPoint. Okay. And I'm going to sit down for much of this. Okay. So we'll talk about why you want to do newspaper research, where you can find the best newspapers, free, subscription, and some workarounds, search strategies, and the technology, and some examples, and then lots of questions. So this is a case where if you've got questions, yell at me. And since my back's to you, you've got to yell at me literally, but that's okay. So newspapers contain traditional information. There are often lists of marriage licenses that were issued, deaths recently. There will be obituaries. They're often in modern day and age, you get very large marriage, the the I have a sister who we'll get to in a minute, just an absolutely classic picture of her, okay, and her marriage. Um, and often there's just a lot more information than you get in the government record. Government record, but you're pretty lucky if you get the father and mother listed. Okay. By the time you get to the wedding, you get the names of all of the participants in the wedding and all that. They are also a source of information when the government records aren't available for a lot of reasons. I mean, there are government records that have been burned, particularly if you were caught up in the South. There are also government records that basically are from time periods when the records weren't kept. Death records were started in Virginia in 1852. If you had someone who died in Virginia before 1852, there is no government record of that. And it's important to remember, we'll talk a little bit about the problem in research generally of knowing where people were. But one of the things to remember is something like a marriage record may actually be listed in a newspaper that isn't where the marriage took place. Isn't where the marriage took place. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, you can think of a number of reasons why that would be true. You will get legal notices, judicial affairs, real estate. So-and-so sold a house to so-and-so. Okay, that gives you information. It gives you an address. It gives you stuff. You have reporting of community and social events. We'll show you one in a minute that I love, but if you think about it, what do you see in the newspaper? You see stuff, and often what you're seeing is an information about an event. I mean, there's one I don't have today, but I always love it. When my 12-year-old father was reported in the Beckley, West Virginia newspaper because he was visiting from the town of Amigo. Okay. And, so George McKinney is visiting his cousin Richard Ashworth. Okay. And it's an enriching of life. Okay. Um, um, my father and his family went to high school at Stucco High School in southern West Virginia, and there's one where uh, the older brother, my father's older brother, uh, is listed as being the person appointed the head of the journalism activity there. It's just a piece of life. And then you get all the classic stuff: military service, church events. You can keep going on and on. And what's often valuable is you get a history of the community. Okay. Um, I often think, and as a matter of fact, we'll talk about this at the end because that's our next meeting. I often think that it's very important to get your brain around the community your family lived in for a couple of generations or so. Okay. It tells you a lot about them, the people they were with, what was going on in their lives. Um, and if you're longstanding in the community, the history can be very valuable. And we're going to get to one of those in a minute. Okay, some examples. There we go. Okay, so this is oh, I have to change where I am recording. Okay, okay, so this is the classic. That's my sister, obviously the fine young lady. Okay. And I understand everybody's been through this to some extent, but you look at all of the names and the what's is it in that are in here. There's the family, the address, who the groom is, etc., given in marriage, maids of honor, etc. Uh, these people are all interesting. Uh, my daughter Jean was the flower girl, complete with the story about how she wouldn't walk up the aisle with all the people. She'd done the she'd done the rehearsal just fine, but with all the people on each side, she just freaked out. And so finally, her brother left his seat, went down, and walked down with her. Her father, not her brother. Anyway, et cetera, et cetera. Me where I am, uh, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a feeling for that. Okay. And then here is a different one in the same vein. This is a wedding anniversary. Okay. Lots of the same kind of information, but very rich in detail, probably richer even than their any announcement that would have happened at their marriage. Okay. This is the 50th anniversary. And included in here is an amazing amount of detailed information. Okay. Where they were born, where she started school, how much she got paid, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, talk about rich information that you can pull up. Okay. Now, I mean, I know almost all of this, but not quite all of it. Okay. Um, that was the bad thing. Hit the wrong key. Everybody give me a minute. There we go. Okay. Okay, now this one is one I just absolutely love. My great grandfather was Charles Vincent Ashworth, and he ends up out in Missouri. And this is a record of the local state fair, okay, and who won what, or maybe it's the county fair, who won what things. And so we'll just go down a little bit here, okay. And oh, largest and best field pump. Okay, whatever. Best ram, best ewe. CV and his daughter Lula. Best spring lamb. Okay. Get the feeling this guy was a farmer, took his farming seriously. Um, best pair of geese, daughter Lula. Best Grimes golden apples, Lula. You getting some flavor for these folks? And that's what this is all about. This one is all about. It's all about, see if I can find the other one that I enjoy here. Oh, best worsted quilt, Mrs. C.V. Ashworth. Okay. So I love that kind of flavor that you can get with these things. Now, here's a funny one. So this is in Louisville in 1848, and one of the cases before the Court of Appeals is Gatliff versus Rose. Well, that case is really important to understand in my family because the man is Charles Gatliff and Rose is one of his slaves. Except the result of this lawsuit was she was freed and all of her children and grandchildren were freed. Because if you may remember, the ruling of the slaves was uh, whether you were a slave or not followed your mother. Her claim was that she was an Indian, not an African American, and not therefore she could not be enslaved according to the laws of Virginia. Okay, but she had been grabbed and sold, and she found a lawyer in Louisville who would argue for her, and she won the case. And the reason it was important was not just that it freed her; it did free all of her descendants because the okay. So that's the kind of wild information you can get out of okay. So now we'll go back to the talk. This is stupid. I apologize for having lost my place here. Here we are finally. Okay. How do you find the right newspaper? So we have to start by thinking about the where here. Um, it you have to have the mentality that's even more detailed than you usually do about location. So, for example, if I wanted to talk about New York, okay, I got New York City's a complex place. Okay, you're not going to find anything that happened over in Brooklyn if you're looking in Manhattan. Okay, and a lot of things happen in both places. So think about how big a place your ancestor lived in, and was it large enough to have neighborhoods or boroughs that might have their own newspapers or their own access? If they lived in a rural area, what was the nearest city with a regular newspaper? And there are ways we can talk about doing that. And did that carry news about your ancestor's rural area? And sometimes the uh, get rid of that. And sometimes the nearest major town might be in a different county or state. I have family from northeastern Tennessee, and the big newspaper is in Bristol. Oops, for those of you who know that area of the country, Bristol is half in Tennessee and half in Virginia. It's literally a town whose main street splits the states. Okay. And so the newspaper might be a Virginia newspaper. Okay. Um, and very common, it would be a different county. Uh, what does the Press Democrat cover now? It has a Napa section. If you were looking for Napa information, would it occur to you to the Santa Rosa Press Democrat would be where you would look? So you've got to be pretty creative about understanding and when you start exploring, okay, that's something you can do. You can just explore around and see how it works. So, what are the major sites? The biggest go-to site is Chronicling America. And by the way, this will be online. Both the slides and the video will be online. If you open up the slides, you can go to the links and just click on the link. Everybody knows how to click on links, right? Okay. Um, so that's the biggest one. What they have is a lot of newspapers. They try to get all the newspapers in the country that have a that are not under a copyright. Okay, and that changes over time. And sometimes it's just a matter of if they ask, they can have more up to date than the copy. They can have some of the copyrighted material. Okay, so it's a really good place. It's we'll do some exploring inside Chronicling America as to how to use it. Got a couple of frustrations, but turns out Purdue University has the best list of free historic newspapers. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. And then many states have free state papers. The best one is the California one. So if your family's from California, the California Digital Newspaper Collection is really a go-to place. Question? Yes. So the last one is a weird one. It's one called Fulton History. And it was originally designed to cover the area around Albany, New York, and upstate New York. But over the years, they've sort of glommed on to anything they could get their hands on. So it covers an amazing amount of the country, um, but particularly New England, upstate New York. Um, and don't forget Google. If you're trying to get information about newspapers, we'll talk about using Google to do that. Okay. Um, okay. Now let's actually do these here. This is probably so. This is the site. I do not care whether I make Chrome faster. Okay. So this is a site called Chronicling America. So what you can see is they have a couple of things you can do to search. Um, Come on. Give me a sec. Okay, so you put a name in here that you want to search. Okay, and it will search all states. Now, you can see there it says from 1756 to 1963. Um, that would be the maximum. Right now, copyrights pretty much go up until 1925, but 1930, somewhere in there. It changes over time. But we'll just look at Charles. Oh, we'll look at Lula. Okay. Now I'm going to Charles. Okay, so we'll start by just searching. So I hit go, and so it tells me that there are 38 um, references they can give you. Okay, and let's just see if we can take one of them. So this is one, Kenosha, Wisconsin. One, I'm not big on that one. Let's see what we got here. Okay, well, I can go to another page, or I can try to narrow it to a particular state. Let me do Kentucky, because that's where my Charles was from. He's from Kentucky, and okay, I got two references. Let's take a look at whatever this one is. Okay, so there's the paper. I'm scrolling with my mouse to make it bigger or smaller. And you can see I'm just using I can different methods. Okay, here's what I'm interested in. Oh, unfortunately, that's not useful. They've taken the name Charles and the name Gatliff and just combined them. That's not the right person. Okay, I'm not going to spend more time on this one right now, but I want to go back and take a look at how we got here. So they have something called advanced search. So advanced search does a couple of things. One, you can pick your state, you can even pick your newspaper. Okay. Um, this is the key though. You can pick any of the words, all of the words, or a specific phrase. And often, if I just typed in Charles Gatliff, it's basically doing an any of the words. Um, but I have to have both of them on the same page. If I type Charles Gatliff here, it will only pick up incidents where literally the same two words show up together. Okay. So you want to look for that capability in any one of these. Um, okay. We're going to come back to that later. Okay. So let's take a look at Purdue for a minute. So Newspapers are alphabetically. You just got to make sure you know what part of the country your family's from. So turns out West Virginia is in the South, which I never would have guessed. But that's okay. Once you learn, it's hard to forget. But you can see what they're doing here is they're listing the free newspapers. So for Alabama, that you have the Civil War Reconstruction site, you have Jacksonville Republic. In Arkansas, you have historical newspapers. Okay, so if whatever one of these is of interest to you, you can explore. Okay, so for example, I did some exploration in the Kentucky digital files just a couple of days ago because I've got a big Kentucky background. Okay, and I'm not going to bother to go to the others. Okay, so let's go to the next. Um, so you can literally Google if you're searching. I'd like to have online American Swedish newspapers. Okay. Google will look for online American Swedish newspapers. Um, we did Chronicling America. There's another place called Sendy's List. Is everybody familiar with Sendy's List? Okay. If you're not, it's kind of a funky site. Um, Years and years ago, the woman who founded this decided she would try to put a master file listing together of all of the genealogy related websites. So anything that pops up she thinks related to genealogy, it's on that website, Cindy's List. And one of the categories is newspapers. So you can go there and see what she's got for newspapers. I don't think she does any of it. I think she's still living. I don't think it's any of it personally. She's got a whole crew of people who do it for her. So you can go to Family Search Wiki. The Family Search Wiki is a fairly useful thing to know about. The newspapers are not their best strength, but if you were to click on that, it will take you to. Everybody knows what a wiki is? Okay. A wiki is where volunteers put together information on a website. So that's what Wikipedia is. Okay. It's not a bunch of editors who are sitting back there writing something. It's a bunch of people like you and me who say, gee, I know a lot about that. I'm going to write about that. Okay. And so they write about it. Okay. Well, what's happened here is volunteers participate in putting things on the Family Search wikis down at the level of locality. So you can get a whole list of everything that's known about Sonoma County, California, that's online. Where do you find births and deaths? Where do you find wills? Where do you find, et cetera? Does that all make sense? Okay. So U.S. newspapers, um, come on, George. There we go. So this is their information on where to find them, and you can make your way down them. We'll talk about some of these paid sites later. Okay, and then finally, the Wikipedia list. This one is the one that has the most unique information. It has information by country and state. It has, so if you have information, if you have family from the Isle of Man, they have newspapers back into the 1700s that you can get copies of. Okay. So somewhere on here. All right, I'm going to cheat. When you've got a long list like this, you can actually search for information. Okay, so I've got different Jewish information here. There's Detroit. All right. So this includes New York. Okay, Peggy. Okay. So if you go here, you'll find some New York, um, New Jersey, etc. Okay. Now the big paid subscription sites. First of all, Ancestry itself is tied to newspapers.com. Newspapers.com is the best site. Um, if you are interested, that would be the one you would subscribe to. I would not do that until I knew that I had enough stuff backed up that's worth doing. And unfortunately, it is not readily accessible locally for free. The other two major sites, Newspaper Archive and Genealogy Bank, are both available at the Family History Center over on the other side of town. I'm probably going to get another one hand that doesn't know, but I'll ask anyway. Anybody not know what the Family History Center is? Okay, Bob. The Family History Center is associated with the Mormon Church on the other side of town. The address and contact information are on our website. So that's all there. And they're open 3 days a week and have a lot of computers and a lot of people who can help you if you need sort of personalized help. Okay. Most of these sites have a 15-day try it, you'll love it once program. Okay. Now, let's go off for a second into how does a computer read a newspaper? Okay. I mean, these are all basically photographs of a page of a newspaper. How the heck does the computer know what's there? And the answer is a technology that's been around for quite a long time called optical character recognition. The technology looks at each letter, identifies what it is, and constructs words. It has major problems. One is many of the newspapers were old and their images are quite indistinct. Some cases, letters can be confused. Again, if it's not totally distinct, is it a double N or is it an M? Okay. OCR has had historically used some artificial intelligence to help. It has its greatest difficulty with names. The other problem it has is in a newspaper, it's not uncommon to have a word broken up at the end of a line. Okay. So how does the computer know that that really is together and not together? So those are all problems. Those are beginning to be really fixed with AI OCR. Because if you think about what you know about artificial intelligence, um, it can have better accuracy. It can have word recognition, not letter recognition. It can have context recognition. So you would know that the next thing that's coming up is a name, for example. Okay. Uh, the bride blank. Okay. Will hint there's probably a name. And it has language recognition. As a matter of fact, there are sites that are using OCR, not any of the genealogy sites that I know of yet, um, that are basically starting with a foreign language newspaper, a foreign language document, and delivering it in English, if that's what you want. Could you do that before? Yep. Was it easy? Nope. Okay. Chronicling America is definitely doing this. They haven't finished. They're just gradually moving it through their system. But what is amazing is the speed with which they do it. We searched the entire Chronicling America database a few minutes ago, which has, I think, well over 100 million pages. Okay, some thoughts. When you search a newspaper site, see if you could use parentheses. That means instead of separating James and McKinney, you get James McKinney. And we talked about before that may also be in advanced mode. Um, check the target name for possible alternatives. Um, and recognize this is a place where you have to know that there may be truncated words. JOS was very frequently used in old newspapers to mean Joseph and lots of old documents. You can limit your search to your target region or newspaper, limit to date range. You can also reverse the process. I recently found a document, a newspaper article that was dated March 13th, 1873. And I could not find it by searching for it. So I found the newspaper I thought it would be in. I found the date, March 13th, 1873, and there it was. And you can see you can logically do that if you know, for example, the death date of somebody. You can look for 3 or 4 days after that and see if you get an obituary, which is very straightforward. Okay, I'm going to run through a couple of examples. Sorry about that. Okay. So, so we're going to do neo-Christian. Okay, we're going to narrow this to Kentucky. And there's the Mountain Advocate issue of July 7th, 1922. And Neil Christian, Harlan County Deputy Sheriff and resident of Wallens Creek, was dying from a pistol bullet wound inflicted by George Lee. ... He's my grandfather. My mother was 2 months old. Um, George Lee was exonerated for the killing because Neil had killed Jim, one of his brothers, even though he was authorized as a deputy sheriff to do that. This is called Welcome to the Mine Problems. This was Harlan County, Kentucky, where you had the coal mine wars. So the fact you were a deputy sheriff simply meant that you were probably paid by the coal company. Okay. And there are lots of stories about this one. There are lots of articles as well. All right, Lachlan, okay. And then one of my favorite guys. Okay, so this is newspapers.com. They bring up this cute little map of the US, and if you want to pick the colors indicate how many people they've got in this particular listing of articles. So we're going to look at Oregon only because it's easier. Okay, there we go. So this is the LeGrand, Oregon paper, and here's Harley, who was from LeGrand, and he's one of my grandson's great grandfathers. Odd little story. Harley appears with his wife in the 1920 census for this area. And then in the 1930 census, his wife of long standing is a widow. So we assume he's died. Wrong. He instead has gone to San Francisco, now has a new wife who is a very nice Irish girl. And what he's doing is in the early 1840s, okay, he's working over at the shipyards during the war. So, all right. Say it again. Oh, World War II. Yeah, yeah. When they had, if you went to the Sunday Symposium yesterday, you got a lecture on Bay Area at War, which had a wonderful coverage of all the shipyards that were in the Bay Area. Okay, so everybody sort of have a sense of how this is working? Okay, so we'll finish it up. Um, okay, if you find a page in an article, in the modern day and age, it's not that hard to download the whole page. You can keep that, you can play with it later. It sort of helps you. You, if you aren't familiar with snipping, I can't describe until I know your technology, how you do it. But if you are familiar with snipping, you can copy the article. Snipping is where you literally just circle the part of the article you want and copy it. However, very important with newspapers. Where did you find the article and the page? Because I will guarantee you, at least half the time, you will forget. And sometimes, if it's hard to find, okay. And with the newspaper, the exact name of the newspaper. I have the Beckley Herald, the Beckley Times Herald, the Beckley, the Raleigh Times Herald are all newspapers published in the same city. Okay. The exact date, the page, and the column. Some of these are very large, very long, and I will guarantee you that having the right column will get you where you want to go. Okay. Think about that little snippet, Gatliff versus Rose. Okay. If that isn't highlighted, how the heck do you know where it is on that page? Okay. Uh, Open to thoughts, questions? Well, give me your workaround. Give me your question. Okay. So Peggy's saying if you uh, think about researching, she has a workaround for an obituary that's worked, which is just to Google name of the person who's deceased and the name of a child or someone else who's likely to be in the obituary, and it will pop up. Okay. Yeah, the biggest workarounds are Google. Okay, because uh, with Google, you can sometimes find an actual newspaper article that's been clipped or a page or just a reference to it. Okay. If you do things like that, where you basically put in the best information you've got. And the thing with Google to always remember is Google loves words. Okay. So
in dreaming up your question, you want to put in 15 words and you're thinking, oh, I better be more parsimonious. Nah, Google loves 15 words. Okay. And if you haven't tried it, Gemini is the name of the Google chatbot. And the advantage that Gemini offers is it looks for alternative words and locations. The way Google works is looking for a web page that has everything you've written down. Okay? So if you're looking for Charles Gatliff, it's going to look for Charles Gatliff. Any page with Charles and Gatliff, that's what it wants. With the chatbots, they can work around if you say the word marriage, and it turns out that what they've got is an engagement. Okay, where word marriage won't appear on that page, so Google won't find it. But the chatbot will say, "Oh, you're looking for these two people in a relationship, and I would guess you'd like to see engagement, or certainly that's close." So it'll do. So think about it as looking at a deeper level, getting vocabulary right, etc. Um, and that's a good place to go. For example, if you want to say, what newspaper covers Napa County, California? You just literally type in the word Gemini up where it says Google, and then it will thereafter, if you want to, it'll remember it's up there. I think if you put an ampersand sign up in the question mark, up in the search routine, it will automatically bring up Gemini. Okay, let's do that instead. Okay, so I'm going to search bar. I'm up here. Let's see if this works. I'm going to do ampersand. Yeah, first thing that comes up is Gemini. Okay, if you click that, it lets you enter a question right there. Because with Google, it's looking for an exact word. Okay, and sometimes when we're searching, we have the right idea, but maybe not exactly the right word. And this way it searches. It also is good at searching a lower level. Uh, an example, we were interested in what restaurants in Sonoma County serve brunch on Sunday. Very straightforward question, right? Unfortunately, you got to go through every restaurant and open its website, right? No, Gemini will go do that for you. It'll bring you back a list. So if you think it looks and collects and yeah, yes. Sorry, it's the at sign. Thank you. Yeah, well, that's just that. Yeah, that certainly. Well, two things. First of all, we were talking here about this is the was in the list, the page that has all the newspapers by country. So we can go up to Germany and see what it has, if anything. No, it's all English language here. I thought it had, yeah, there we go. These are the non-English language. Germany, come on. And also Italian, Sweden. Good grief. Yeah, it's the Wikipedia. Okay. And there we go. Lots and lots of Germany. Okay. So something might jump off the page here at you. if it doesn't, you're right, you go in and search. You also, this is a good place to potentially use the Family Search Wiki. Okay, let me do that because that is a very valuable thing when it works the way you want it to. Okay, everybody sees I'm on the Family Search website. I do have to sign in. And everybody knows with Family Search, you sign in's free. It's just you have to have a sign in. Okay, so we can search, come on, search the Research Wiki. Okay, so you see where I'm going with this? All right, so um, so what they have is a map. You can either click on the map and just get more specific. Germany, you want to give me an area or should I just guess one? Let me just take Saxony. Okay. And then it will have how you break out Saxony. Okay. You following all this? Yeah. Okay. And then eventually, I'll pick one at random. Okay. So I'm not seeing anything that's productive yet on newspapers, but if you sort of wake your search through here, oh, here we go. Articles on how to search, etc. I don't see one on newspapers. Okay. I haven't been down here before. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Um, Next time, what I would like to do is ask you to come and share information about where your family's from. Okay? This is, you should know a lot about your family's locations. Okay? So pick a location that works and tell us about it. Was your family part of a community there? Did they go to a church or synagogue? I mean, what can you tell me about the community? Anywhere, anywhere. I mean, if I were doing this, I might, for example, do the Kolno, Kolno, which is the uh, Polish town near the little village where my wife's grandmother grew up. Okay, and one of the things I remember finding there is a wonderful video of uh, uh, Easter Sunday showing everybody in their finery marching into church. Okay, which I just thought was wonderful. Okay, and then we've been there. I didn't take a video camera with me, but I can get Google Maps and I can take you through the town, the village that she's from. Okay, that kind of thing. Where you, but yeah. Oh, Denise,
Yes, George. Hi.
hi. Hello to the sunny Southwest.
So I can share a list of the newspapers that I use if you think that might be helpful to your audience.
Sure.
You want to share screen with me?
I will have to turn that on so you can do that. Just give me a sec. You should be able to share now.
All right. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So these are
No, we're not up yet. I have you on a Zoom share. Can you do Zoom share?
yeah, I should be on a Zoom share.
You have to pick the.
Do you see it yet?
We're seeing you.
You're seeing me, but you're not seeing my Zoom share.
No. Should be able to pick the,
Well, I'm not sure, George, why I'm not picking it up. Let me hear.
well, when you hit share, I mean, you know how to Zoom share.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Okay, good. All right. So some
Good.
of these you have made comments on already. The one that I'd like to point out is Small Town Papers. That is wonderful for very small communities. And then Advantage Archive, that's also a free site that's available. And then there's a whole section of newspaper directories. So Ancestor Hunt, you mentioned Cindy's List and Family Search. We also have the largest newspaper directory at the LDS church site, U.S. Newspapers and Obit Directory. And then you mentioned Wikipedia. There is a good video on how to use Chronicling America. And if you're not quite sure how to do that, I'd really suggest looking at that. It's really a short video, but it gives you some really good tools that you might not have considered using. Also, I have a state-by-state websites for historical papers. It's really important to know that less than 4% of historical newspapers have been digitized. So the majority of them you're going to find at your local family search center, genealogy, or historical societies. However, there are some in Family Tree magazine that you have these hot links for, so that if there is a possibility of finding the appropriate newspaper from the location of interest, you can see the hot links that are there. So I'd be happy to share that with you, George. If you want me to send
Yeah.
it to you, I'd be happy to.
If you would send that to me, I'll append that to my list of the slides.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so
Thank you. By the way, for those, is there anybody here who hasn't met Denise? Okay.
uh-oh, my
Denise,
reputation precedes me, George. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Denise teaches a series of free online genealogy classes that are sponsored by the JC. Okay. And next time they come out, I mention them in my regular newsletter. Okay. You really should consider taking one.
Thank you for all your support, George. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you all. We'll see you. Oh, and if you have a specific thought about what you want to share, uh, you can email me and we can talk about maybe how to do that, or slides, videos, or just pictures, anything. Okay, all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great class.
Next time, pick a location, family location. Okay, I'm gonna try and let me get this thing, and there we go, end.